Hey, this is Dave Allison from Hamilton, Montana, at West Texas Bugs on Instagram. And I'm going to do something I've never done before, is make a video on an iPhone, which I've been told by reliable sources that I can do. I'm going to tie today a Poly Yarn Hackle Stacker. And I'm going to tie a size 12. For a hook, I'm going to use a Togata 102 and a size 12. It's a little stiffer wire than the original Togata hooks that came out, so I like them a little bit better. For thread, I'm going to use Nano Silk, 18-aught Simperfly Nano Silk and Brick Beige. So I'm going to go ahead and just start my thread a little bit behind the eye and come back and do nice even wraps. Throw down a nice little base. And I'll come back all the way to the bend of the hook. And I'm going to put a tail on this thing. I'm going to use some Coke de Leon. And I know mayflies only have 3 tails, but I feel like on a dry fly that a tail is more of an outrigger than being anatomically correct. So I'm going to take pretty healthy little chunk here. And the way I set tails on dry flies, I don't measure them out or any of that stuff. I take them just by the tips. I drop them at a 45-degree angle to the hook shank and the thread. And then I come over 1-2 wraps and it brings them right up on top. And then I can adjust them to whatever length I want really easily. So once I get it to where I want it, then I'll go ahead and tie the butts in, and I'll come about 2/3 up the shank, flatten my thread, come back. One thing nice about 18-aught Nano Silk is you can go up and down the hook shank all you want and never build up any bulk. So for dubbing, I'm going to use this Simperfly Kapok. And I'm going to use the color salmon, not for any particular reason, just because. But you can tie this fly in any size, any color you want. So I'll go ahead and start putting my dubbing on nice and thin. I'm going to try to build a little bit of a taper in the body. I want to start nice and thin and come up to a taper. I want to come with my dubbing about to that 2/3 point, about where I ended the tie-in of my tails. So I'll just go ahead and slide my noodle right up to the tail. Nice even touching wraps. Start trying to build that taper a little bit, and I should stop about right there. Okay, so I've got a body and a tail. And now I'm going to go ahead and tie in a poly wing. And so this is EP trigger fibers. And you can use Parapost or whatever poly you like to use. I like these because they're nice and straight. I'm gonna trim off the ends, so I've got them nice and square. And I've got this loop here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the square butt ends and I'm going to put them right up by the eye. And go ahead and tie those in, and I want to leave a little space behind that eye. I'm going to have a little bit going on up there here in a minute, so I don't want to go right to the eye, but now I have a nice loop. Then the next thing I want to do is I want to put a piece of hackle. So this is just a piece of looks like Cree, and I'll go ahead and strip off a little bit of the stem, and I want to put this right on top. So I'll put it a little bit to my side, and then when I come over, my thread will carry it. So I want the shiny side up right on top of the hook. All right, now I need to get a little bit more dubbing and dub my thorax. And so for this, I'm going to start my wraps right behind the eye and work my way back, which is important for this fly, but it's also kind of nice. It's really hard to crowd your eye if you're working from the eye backwards rather than going forwards. So go ahead and slide my noodle up, leave a little bit of space there so I can get my thread right to behind the eye. And now I want to leave that gap, so I don't want to start my dubbing right up behind the eye. I want a little bit of a space there. Okay, so I want a nice reverse taper, and then I'm going to lift this loop up, get the hackle unattached from it, and I'm going to bring my thread behind the loop and lay it over on the other side of the hook. Then with my finger, I can hold this loop open, and then I can start to, just by passing the hackle from hand to hand, I can start wrapping up. And I want to come up as high as the distance to the eye. So as you can see, I'm just about there. I'll bring my hackle back down through. Just try to keep it as uniform as you can. It's not like a parachute where it's got to look perfect because it's about to get stacked. Now at this point I just hooked a hackle plier to the end of my hackle, and now I can let go of the whole thing. All right, so now I'll bring my thread up and I can manipulate this loop, and I can come around, and right at the base I can tie off my hackle nice and carefully. 2 or 3 wraps is good, and then I can come in and remove the waist. Now I have to get my thread back up to the front, and so I'll bring it over the top. Now I'm wrapping in the wrong direction, so I'll go ahead and throw just a quick half hitch in here. And now I'm wrapping in the correct direction. Okay. Now go ahead and stroke all of these hackle fibers. Hold onto your loop and just stroke them all backwards. And then I'm going to lay my loop right in that little notch where I left that space. Come over 1, 2, 3 times, loose turns. Hold onto your bobbin, hold onto your loop, and stack. And I'll bring everything back. Okay, now at this point I'm going to take a little bit of dubbing, just a tiny bit. Behind the eye in front of the loop. Whip finish. And I can take this poly yarn and I can cut it just a little higher than my hackle, and now I have a hackle stacker that I can actually see on the water when I fish it. And of course the hackle stacker is a Bob Quigley fly, so it's a little bit of an adaptation, but it's fun to tie, it's fun to fish, it's easy to see. What else do you want? That's all I got. Thanks.